Glacier is a great place. In fact, it's my favorite place. And because it's so big, you're going to want to stay close to where you want to play. I've been to the park nearly every year since 1994, so I understand the choices pretty well. I'll cover everything from campgrounds, to cabins, to the motels and motor inns, and of course, the historic lodges. I'll even tell you about the backcountry chalets. About 3 million people visit the park every year. They come for the spectacular scenery, the wildlife, and perhaps the chance to experience the early 1900s version of luxury. The largest hotels are historic beauties built by the Great Northern Railroad. They have floors that creak, walls that are thin, no TVs, and beautiful lobbies with very slow Wi-Fi. The park is so remote that they're only open for about 110 days a year. To stay in the park, you have to plan ahead. There's less than 1,000 rooms in the park, and they're often booked months in advance. So most of us don't get to stay in the park. There are many campgrounds, and a few of them take reservations which are also booked months in advance. Local businesses on the west side of the park have responded with accommodations at many price levels. From the traditional full-service hotel to my favorite motel, which is just a few miles from the west entrance. Glacier National Park was created in 1910, thanks in part to the Great Northern Railroad who brought the tourists here. They arrived at either East or West Glacier. They toured the park on horseback, and at the end of each day's ride, they stayed in tents or small chalets built by the railroad. It wasn't long before those accommodations weren't posh enough for the wealthy Easterners who could afford these trips. So the Great Northern started building large, modern hotels in spectacular places. These hotels are much the same today as they were when they were built. Some have been recently renovated, but they're still pretty basic by today's standards. If you're expecting to find features and amenities that you would find at any major city hotel costing this much, well, you're going to be disappointed. Here there is no air conditioning, and few other modern conveniences that isolate you from the wonder that surrounds you. Wi-Fi is available, but only in the lobbies. You should also expect your cell phone not to work, unless you're in Apgar or near St. Mary. The historic lodges are located in the most popular parts of the park. And remember I said that Glacier is big. Well, these lodges are at least 50 miles apart, and it'll take over an hour to get from one to another. I'm going to start at the beginning, which is a pretty good place to start. You can still arrive by train at East Glacier. Red buses provide tours, and there's a shuttle bus service to the rest of the park. Glacier Park Lodge was completed in 1913 with 61 rooms. An annex was later built with another 100 rooms. This is the only lodge outside the park boundary, which is why it's legal to fly the drone here. The entire east side of the park is on Blackfeet tribal land. When the locals saw the lobby for the first time, they called it Big Tree Lodge, because it's supported by 60 large trees that still retain their bark, which apparently is hard to do. There's also a fancy-ish restaurant and a bar lounge with more casual fare. And of course, there's a gift shop. The lobby also has a display that teaches the history of the area, as well as some local art. It's also a great place just to kick back and relax. There's a variety of rooms at different price points. This is one of the bigger ones. It has been recently renovated, it's comfortable, and it reflects the local environment. And there's a great view of the mountains. The smaller rooms are nice too. And I wonder why the hallway is so big. Back in the day, this was a destination hotel, so there's a 9-hole golf course. And of course, you can tour the park on a red bus. You can also book a walking interpretive tour of this historic lodge. And if you want to get married here, they do that. It's become a popular wedding venue, and they got 3 ballrooms. 15 minutes up and down a twisty mountain road is the 2 Medicine Park entrance. A vehicle reservation ticket is not needed here. When the Sun Road is not fully open, this corner of the park tends to be pretty busy. Just about a mile past the gate, I tried to park at a trailhead. But even on an early June day, I had to double park just to get this shot of the trail. The main Two Medicine parking area is a couple more minutes down the road, near Two Medicine Lake.
Back into a parking place, please. The parking lot's full up.
Here too, on this cold, rainy day, the main lot was full, and it was just after 10 in the morning. But luckily, the camp store lot wasn't full. The camp store provides services for the campground nearby, which has about 100 sites. The sites here are available on a first-come, first-served basis. This lack of parking means that the trails here are less crowded than others in the park, which is a good thing, because some of the most scenic trails in the park are here, like the one to Scenic Point. It's a part of the Continental Divide Trail. Experienced hikers will tell you that the best multi-day hikes in the park are here too. And another can be combined with a boat ride, like the one to Twin Falls. And if you're not a hiker, the boat tours are great for you too. And on a nice day, so is this view from the bench. And the little town of East Glacier is one of the few towns on the east side that has a few motels. They're small, family-owned, and generally more affordable than the lodge. The town also has a few places to eat. And 20 minutes further into the Blackfeet Nation is the larger town of Browning. And I had a bad experience there once. I stopped for gas and was surrounded by locals demanding money. And well, I haven't been back. And in August of 2022, a commenter on one of my other Glacier videos said someone threw a rock, hitting his car while he was driving here on US 2. Anyway, our next destination is 50 miles north on Highway 89, just outside the park. It's a scenic hour-plus drive that weaves its way through rolling prairie. At about the halfway point, there's some construction. In my last version of this video, I mentioned that the Blackfeet might take a page from the Navajo Business Development Handbook and build a much-needed large hotel on the east side of the park. And I can't help but wonder if that's just what they're doing. A little further up the road, there's a big 180-degree turn and a pullout. This is where my cell phone, with AT&T service, comes to life. On the northeast side of the park, this may be the only place where you have cell service. The town of St. Mary is the eastern terminus of the Going to the Sun Road. It's the home of the St. Mary Village. It's outside the park and offers many types of rooms and even pricey mini houses. If you need air conditioning, many of their rooms have it. There's also one gas station, though it is $1 more than what I paid on the west side. When the Sun Road is open, they also open a little eatery next door. They make a pretty good buffalo burger and have a real good ice cream counter. A little farther north is my favorite part of the park, Many Glacier. It's popular for a reason. It's a day hiker's paradise. And it's a pretty good place to spot wildlife too. Many of the most popular trails in the park are here. Check out my other videos on the park for more info. And no, you don't need a vehicle reservation to enter. But the road is often closed to those without an accommodation reservation to stay here. And the road is only reopened as others drive out. So if you want to hike here, it's best to stay here. This is the Many Glacier Hotel. The 5-story Swiss-style hotel opened in 1915. The surrounding mountains reminded many of the Alps, so the lodge was built in the Alpine Swiss style. The Great Northern Railway promoted it as one of the most noteworthy tourist hotels ever erected in America. Located on Swiftcurrent Lake, the Many Glacier Hotel is the largest in the park, with 214 guest rooms, in keeping with the era in which it was built. The rooms are simple but comfortable, and the ones with the balcony have a great view. And for you young couples, keep in mind that the walls are very thin. Like the other historic hotels, it does not have the luxury of air conditioning. It was renovated 100 years later, in 2016. The lobby is a great place to relax, near the large windows or the large fireplace. And feeding it keeps the bellman busy. During the 2016 renovation, the lobby was returned to its original design. The gift shop that had been added was removed, and in its place they built a spectacular wood staircase to match the one that was originally here in 1915. The Park Service raised almost $250,000 to remake this solid wood double spiral staircase. It was a part of the original building in 1915, but in 1957 it was removed to make room for a gift shop. While talking to a bellman, I learned that the lights hanging from the lobby ceiling were changed back too. It also turns out that he's a subscriber to my channel and quite a fan. So I'm going to let him explain what they did.
So the lighting that we have here after the renovations went back to the original Japanese style. The Great Northern Railway, when they had their line come through, it went Chicago to Seattle, and then they had a steamboat that could take you straight to Japan. So they bought lanterns from Kyoto, Japan. But after World War II, Japanese style obviously wasn't very popular. So in the renovations, when they took out the spiral staircase, they also changed the lanterns. So in these most recent ones, they took them back to the original style for as much as they could.
Let me tell you, it's really nice to hear from people who like my work. And you never know what kind of effect you're going to have on people. This guy was also working at the hotel, and he told me that he decided to work here after watching my hike to the Ptarmigan Tunnel video, which is a pretty nice hike, and he wanted to see it for himself. The gift shop is now on the lower level. There's also a snack bar / convenience store called Heidi's down there. Those supply shortages kept the shelves pretty empty on my last visit. The lower level also provides access to the rocky Swiftcurrent lakeshore. And even when the weather is bad, the view isn't. When it's good, it's really good. Especially at dawn. And the sunsets, they're not bad either. On the main floor, there's a fine dining restaurant. Here's a peek at the menu. The choices look pretty good. The fancy Ptarmigan dining room has also been returned to its original glory. There's more affordable fare at the bar, usually. In June of 22, for some reason, they didn't have any, though the TV still worked. Lots of folks want to stay here, so they can charge a lot for the privilege. This is a screenshot I made in August of 22 when I tried to book a room for August of 2023. There were only a few nights when rooms were available in the entire month, and that's 1 year out. And it doesn't really matter because I can't afford those rates anyway, but if you want to stay here, it just shows you that you have to plan ahead, maybe more than a year ahead. If you're not lucky enough to stay here, and you can find a parking space, the Mini Glacier Hotel is worth a visit. But there's one more obstacle. The parking lot is higher than the top of the 5-story hotel. The view from up here is pretty good, but remember you have to get back up it. I counted 55 steps, plus this little slope. So if you're staying here, you might want to load and unload your car down at door level. If you don't need the big lobby and you're really here just for hiking, you may want to stay about a mile down the road at the Swiftcurrent Motor Inn and Cabins. This is my favorite place to stay. The Motor Inn's rooms are larger than the standard rooms in the hotel, and you can park near your door, which makes for an easy load in and load out for me. And many trailheads are literally just a few feet away. And the rooms here fill up quickly, and it's been years since I've been able to book a room here. You'd think they might comp me one for giving him so much business, but anyway. I've also stayed in the cabins several times, and they are very basic. Most have just one bed, and some don't even have a bathroom or hot water. They might be too basic for you, so be sure to ask for what they include. For example, is there hot water? There are some 2-bedroom cabins, and they do have bathrooms and hot water. But when you're here to do some hiking, what more do you really need? Public bathrooms and showers are just a few yards away, near the public laundry. There's another little building here they call the Motel Pine Top. It has small rooms and thin walls. When I stayed here, I got bed bugs, but I'm sure they solved that problem by now. Across the parking lot is the Mini Glacier Campground. It's one of the most popular in the park. 40 of the 103 sites can be reserved at recreation.gov. The rest are first come, first served. And both RVs and tents are allowed, unless there's a lot of bear activity. Then only hard-sided campers are allowed. The lobby of the Motor Inn is functional. It adjoins a diner. After a name change, it's now called Nell's. It's moderately priced and reasonably tasty. I've eaten here a lot, and for me, it's pretty good hiking fuel. And pizza is a popular item, though picky people may not find gluten-free crust. The camp store is opposite the diner. It's well equipped with reasonably priced sandwiches and other packaged food, and also has some supplies, like bear spray. But more importantly, they have huckleberry soft serve ice cream. Even if you're not a hiker, there's much to do in Many Glacier. You can take a trail ride to Cracker Lake. It's the bluest in the park. Every night in the Swiftcurrent parking lot, there's a wildlife spotting party. A ranger points a spotting scope to the slopes on either side of the valley. This is a great way to see bears, safely from a distance. This is as close as my 600mm lens could get. If there aren't any bears, you might see bighorn sheep or mountain goats. Mountain goats are particularly fond of the ledges on the opposite slope. This is also a great place to see wildlife without a scope. If you're coming here to see bears, this is one place to see them. The Iceberg Lake Trail is often closed because of too much bear activity, and moose are common in a nearby lake. And I was once lucky enough to see a porcupine. The lake the moose feed in is Fisher Cap Lake. It's just a short walk from the Swiftcurrent lobby down this path. The moose go to the lake to feed, and they tend to do so most evenings around dinner time. But it's important to remember that this is not Disneyland. Sometimes we encounter bears on their search for berries. It's important to remember that this is the wildlife's home. We are the intruders. If you want to see what happens with a mama bear and her cubs around a trail, watch the Iceberg Lake segment of my long hiker video on my channel. We were lucky. On my first visit to the park, a man on the same trail wasn't. He was badly mauled. At the end of the parking lot, near the campground, there are informative ranger programs. I've heard many of these, and well, they're always interesting. And the rangers also give talks in the Many Glacier Hotel, often with a slideshow. During the day, there are boat tours on Swiftcurrent Lake and nearby Lake Josephine. Canoes and kayaks can be rented, but if you bring your own, it has to be inspected for zebra mussels before you can put it in the water. Don't be responsible for contaminating this pristine water. If photography is your thing, then you gotta love Many Glacier. Sunrise in front of the Many Glacier Hotel is one of the best you will ever see. And seeing things like this is one of the best reasons to stay in the park. I took all of these images in Many Glacier. The park's other historic lodge is on the busier west side of the park. It's at the eastern end of the largest lake in the park, Lake McDonald. Lake McDonald Lodge is also in the Swiss style, but it wasn't built by the Great Northern. It was built by a local to compete with the Great Northern's East Side hotels. Its 3.5 stories were finished in 1914 as the Lewis Glacier Hotel. In 1957, the name was changed. Out back, there are 18 rentable cottages with a lake view. The real entrance, or the original entrance, is on the lakeside. The first visitors got here by boat because the road wasn't built yet. And that explains why this entry is so small. It's really the back door. The lobby is smaller than the others, but it's still a nice space. A large fireplace covers one wall. The lodge has only 82 rooms, but there are those 18 cottages. In a short distance away, there's also a motor inn. Like the others, this can be a pretty pricey place to stay, and the restaurant caters to those who can afford to stay here. There's also a bar with a few food items. I've never stayed here, mostly because there aren't any trails just outside the door. But it's another place where you are able to get on a horse and do a trail ride. This is more of a place for the tour bus crowd. If you're not going to do any hiking, this just might be the best place to stay. There's still one more hotel to tell you about. It's just north of the border. In 1932, Glacier and Canada's Waterton National Park teamed up to form the first international peace park. It's here where the Great Northern Railroad built the Prince of Wales Hotel, in an amazing spot. This hotel has a spot of British sophistication, including high tea. Lake Waterton straddles the U.S.-Canada border. A cruise can take you to the outpost called Goat Haunt on the U.S. side of the border. Other water activities are available on Lake Cameron, about 20 minutes away. Even if you don't stay here, the setting of the hotel is one that you soon won't forget. Well, that's all of Glacier's historic hotels, and a couple of their nearby motor inns. There are 2 more motor inns. They're at either end of the Going to the Sun Road. The Apgar Village Inn is on the west side, and Rising Sun is on the east. We're going to start 10 miles west of the Lake McDonald Lodge, where a few buildings make up the town site of Apgar. The Apgar Village Inn is on the west shore of Lake McDonald. It's the only place where you can get a room this close to a lake. Another advantage to staying here is that you're in a little walkable town with shops, cafes, and other services. You can rent a kayak, an e-bike, or even a can of bear spray here. You can also book a horseback ride or a rafting trip. And for the kids, in nearby West Glacier, you'll find a hatchet and matches store with a fine example of vertical integration, because they sell first aid kits too. Did I say that with enough sarcasm? Anyway, the small town feel is probably one reason the Apgar Village Inn is already fully booked for most of 2023. Of course, it can also be because this is the view from the rooms. And they have little kitchens too, so you can save money on meals. The Apgar Village Inn has a lot to offer, but to stay here, you have to plan way in advance. You'll have to grab one of the rooms as soon as they are released on the website. There's also a campground. It's the largest in the park, and one of only 5 that take reservations. And the only way to book them is on the recreation.gov website. The campground has trees that provide tent and RV campers with shade and some privacy. There's potable water, flush toilets, and showers. On most evenings, you can take a short walk to the amphitheater to take in a ranger talk. And now, let's talk about the sunsets. A lucky few get to see them from their door. The rest of us are lucky enough to see them from the lake shore. It's one of those rare communal moments when everybody just stares in silence. A little later, it's a great place to stargaze. Yes, that's the Milky Way. And if you're really lucky, you may even see the Northern Lights. If possible, the pre-dawn and sunrise is even better. Now it's time to wrap up the Apgar section and head over to our last motor inn, Rising Sun. The Rising Sun Motor Inn is 4 miles from the east entrance of the Going to the Sun Road, which bisects the park. It's one of the most beautiful roads in the country. Not only are there things to see all across its 50-plus mile length, it's also the home of several trailheads. Some are easy, leading to waterfalls. Others are hard, leading to mountain passes with incredible views. It's very close to St. Mary Lake, which is very nice in the morning. There's a reason they call it Rising Sun. The way the light hits the mountains here is spectacular. You can also take a boat tour on St. Mary Lake. The ticket office is just down the hill. The rooms and cabins are similar to those found at Swiftcurrent. They are simple, basic, and comfortable. The cabins are tucked away in the woods, and they're a step up from those at Swiftcurrent. There's also a camp store and a restaurant. And by the way, I've stayed in all of these rooms, and they have every place I've mentioned so far. This is another great place for photography. It's where the prairie meets the mountains, and where elk graze in the morning. And Wild Goose Island is just up the road. It's an amazing spot. A little further down the road are trailheads to several waterfalls. So when you're looking for an adventure near the Going to the Sun Road on the east side of the park, consider the Rising Sun Motor Inn. I prefer to stay in the park. I like the basicness of the rooms and other amenities. And I really like to wake up to a view like this. Or this. Or this. But lodge rooms are booked several months or even a year in advance. So you really need to plan ahead if you want to stay in the park. And yes, I've tried calling at the last minute to see if there are any recent cancellations to see if I can get a room. Well, it's never worked out for me. So for short notice trips, the park's lodges are probably not an option. But thanks to good old capitalism, there are plenty of places to stay outside the park, especially in the towns west of the park. There you'll find modern hotels and resorts, Airbnbs, and the small motels that I prefer. So there are plenty of options. And remember, the park lodges are pretty basic. So if you need a TV and Wi-Fi in your room, well, the towns on the west side provide many options that may be better for you. There are fewer options on the Blackfeet-controlled east side of the park. The increase in park visitors has encouraged locals to build more rooms in the towns of St. Mary and near Duck Lake, but there's still nowhere near as many as there are on the west side. And yes, there are RV and camping areas outside both sides of the park, as well as in the park's own campgrounds. Shooting these videos requires a lot of equipment. I had 7 cameras with me on this shoot, so I prefer to stay on the first floor of places where I can back up my car right up to my room door for easy loading and unloading. And that's why I like staying in the park's motor inns. But if they're booked up, there are other options. There are a couple of small hotels in West Glacier just outside the park. Hungry Horse is the next town over. It's before Columbia Falls, Whitefish, and Kalispell. All of these places have places to stay. But just 10 miles from the park entrance, in Hungry Horse, I found this little gem. I support other small businesses, and the Mini Golden Inn was built by a retired Marine who was paralyzed by a drunk driver while on active duty. It's managed by his daughter and her handsome Malamute. And yes, your dog is welcome too. The Marine designed 9 of the rooms to be wheelchair friendly. This is one of those rooms. As you can see, it's big. This one has a kitchenette and a nice-sized fridge. And, of course, a dining table. This is the massive bathroom. A wheelchair can actually roll right into the shower. And for security, there's even a peephole at wheelchair height. It's also in a great location because just across the street, there's a gas station and a grocery store, which made it quite easy to do my shopping and then cook my own meals. That helped make this a great place for this minor filmmaker. But it was also good enough for international movie star Ewan McGregor. He stayed here while shooting his motorcycle road trip show. Even the standard rooms are quite big and have 2 beds and a microwave. So as I said, I like to support small businesses like this one. And that's why I use Google Maps to find and book them. You see, Expedia and the others take a 15 to 20% fee from these small businesses. And you can help them avoid these fees by booking directly with them. Okay, it's time to wrap this up. There are great places to stay throughout the park, starting with the 3 great lodges. Well, 4 if you count the one in the sister park. Their locations are perfect for those who seek a quiet morning, peaceful evenings, and maybe even a fancy meal. The motor inns and campgrounds are easier on the wallet and great for those who want easy access to trails and wildlife. In total, there are less than 1,000 rooms in the park. Yes, there are several campgrounds, including some that take reservations, but camping isn't an option for many, so most visitors have to stay outside the park. There's only a few options on the east side, though there may be one more soon. There are many options on the west side, including my favorite little place. And when you book a room there, tell her that you watched this video. If this video helped you plan your trip, please subscribe and give it a thumbs up. If you're watching on a big flat screen, I know that can be tricky to figure out how to do, but please figure it out. Because without your support, by making a simple click, I just can't continue to make these extensively researched videos. Thanks again for watching the West is Big channel. It exists to help you explore it. I have several other videos on my favorite park, Glacier, as well as a series on Utah and New Mexico's national parks. Those are great places to go to in the off-season, in the late fall, winter, and early spring, because, well, the parks are less crowded. Anyway, hit that like button and please subscribe.